So talking more about the load cell pedal then, Hunter, just explain to us what the main benefits would be for somebody that's not used any load cells before.
Well, I'm sure you can attest to it that it just feels like a more natural brake feel that you would feel in like a car or whatever you would drive on track. You just get more data inputs from a load cell to your sim of choice by ACC, Assetto, Corsa, iRacing, whatever. And that leads to a smoother and more consistent braking feel.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I'll sort of hold my hands up and say I was quite surprised with the fact that even with a basic load cell, you can sort of feel that the car doesn't lock up as much. It's not so stabby on the brakes.
Start of the race, pushing hard at the start of the race. It's going to be a very, very fun mess.
A fun mess. I've got a feeling we're going to be revisiting, Luke, that very comment through the evening. But some very familiar names that I'm seeing here in this top split. Now, this has been incredibly popular as a brand new championship for the sim grids. So much so, I believe there's about 5 different splits of 35 cars that are taking part. We are going to be covering the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme, the top 35 qualifying drivers. And what has happened over the past week has been that the drivers have all taken part on the qualifying server on a minimum of 10 timed laps, and we take the fastest average of those laps. Luke, some names that we really are familiar with, and some welcome new faces as well.
Yeah, and obviously at the weekend we had the 24 hours, so a lot of these drivers have been driving GT3 for the past week. Got their qualifying out of the way, switched back to their GT3 cars and got practicing and racing for that. So having to make that transition just one day after the 24 hours is finished back into the Cup car, which I need to cover, is such a different car to the way GT3s work. It's built to similar regulations. Obviously it is based off the same car as the 911 GT3, but it drives so differently. It's a car that you drive with your feet more than the steering wheel, because you have to use the obviously the lack of traction control means that the car slides quite a lot, so be able to manage that is a real challenge. And because it is so different, those drivers that are able to adapt quickly, I think, to different cars are going to be at a big advantage tonight.
And just talking about some of the names that we see here that were in the 24, I recognise quite a few of them. Samir Ibrahimi, we've got Yunus van Druyten, Igor Ogorodnikov, Wilf Machuska, Mikhail Statsenko, part of the winning team from this weekend, Chris Hook. Many names up there, and that's just in the top 10 that we recognise from this weekend. So it's going to be a huge season, and I think Silverstone is an amazing place for this Academy Cup to start off with. A very open track, very wide track, equal parts speed, equal parts tight technical turns. And I think without further ado, we've got about 4 minutes before qualifying starts. Luke, would you like to take us through a hot lap here of Silverstone?
I would love to. Let's get it going. Obviously, starting on the alternate pit straight, the one that the F1 cars don't use, coming up to Cops here. You're braking very early in this car, down to 4th gear. It's a really hard corner to drive, and you drift the car. Sliding is a big thing in this car, getting it up onto those curbs. Running up to the fastest section of the track here, Maggots, Beckis and Chapel. It's really not easy in this car. You have to throw it over the curbs. Once again, sliding it around corners. Down to 4th gear. You can see that you're trying to steer with those pedals as much as you are with the steering wheel. Use up those curbs. Be careful on the throttle, because obviously with no traction control, this thing, when you light up the rear, it wants to spin out on you. So you have to be careful with your throttle inputs here. Coming down to the run to Stowe. And another corner, which is a real challenge, it's a real challenge here, down to about 4th or 3rd gear. Again, you're trying to slide the car through the corner. Just about getting an opposite lock there all the way as you come through the turn. Now to the Vale Club section, braking with the curb here, down to about 2nd gear. You're going to touch the curb on the inside, run hard on the curb over the right-hand corner here. Run a little bit wide on exit. Try and stay flat if you can, and get close to that curb on the right for the obviously the F1 straight here. Coming to Abbey now, a slightly faster corner than we saw with Cops. You stay in 5th gear. Again, you hit that curb on the right-hand side, and then flat, or almost flat, sorry, left-hand as you come to the farm section of the track. a slow corner here too. Second gear, a right-hander, and again another slow corner here in entering the back section. Sorry, I lost track there. Village. Here we are. I always forget the corner name here. I don't know why. Running over the curb, running wide on the exit for this straight. You've got a couple corners to go now. Some of the hardest ones on the track. You're running into Brooklands. A corner gets tighter and tighter as you turn it. Down to third gear. Come onto the curb on the left, but you don't want to go too far or too early. You cut it later on. Coming into Luffield now, a double apex corner. Run a little bit wide, come back into the corner, and then ride on exit for Woodcote here. Get onto the outside curb, and then close towards this wall on the right-hand side. You want to cut over the curb, but don't go too far because you can invalidate your lap. And across the line for a lap, about 2 minutes. 2 minutes flat if you're lucky, but I don't think we're going to get that fast in this session.
Well, a huge thank you to James Parker from Coach Dave Academy for that hot lap, and of course our wonderful new Trackworks pedal cam that we got to see for the very first time there as well. So that was awesome stuff. And for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you'll actually see what they did there is he had one of their custom Trackworks brake mods on the pedals there that allow you that higher fidelity when braking, and really try to replicate the feel and the push of real life brake pedals, and try and help improve your lap times with that. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, head over to trackworks.ca, and you can also check out Coach Dave Academy as well. They've got a very special bundle on their Porsche Cup setup bundles. Save 20% for that just now if you head over to Coach Dave Academy, follow the link on the website over at the simgrid.com, and you'll get $20 of an amazing deal for the 911 GT3 Cup setups, and that includes race and qualifying setups for every single track in Assetto Corsa Competizione. So that is a mega deal, and that will get you up with the fast boys and girls very quickly indeed. Luke, we are just seconds away from going qualifying. What are you expecting tonight?
I think I'm expecting a lot of yellow flags. We saw how on edge you have to be with this car on that hot lap. If you want to get this thing going fast, you want to be sliding through corners. You want to be opposite lock through places like Stowe. So it is very hard to drive. I think we're going to see a lot of issues, especially for the people perhaps not used to this car. But we've seen in practice already. Obviously, we've seen it. The people on the broadcast haven't. But people are already getting down to the 2-minute flat section. I think Niels van der Koekelp was in a 2-minute flat 0.7 in the practice session. So I'm expecting a lot of pace around here. But I think we're also going to see a really tight grid, because in qualifying, all these drivers were within 0.6 of a second of each other.
Yeah, and for sure, I think that's going to lead to some very close racing, because of course, remember, up until this point, all they've been doing is pushing the car as fast as they can, trying to get the lap times in. How they deal in a crowd is going to be something completely different, isn't it, Luke?
Yeah, you see, just with that slide, you can't really do that. Yeah, you can't really do that in a pack of cars, with that sliding. So you have to be very careful. And I think also we're going to see that disparity in strategy through the field of people that have decided that they can't be bothered to look after their tyres. They're just going to push as hard as they can, and maybe come in for a pit stop halfway through the race. Versus some people who will genuinely have to drive 2 or 3 seconds slower a lap to get these tyres to last 45 minutes. So we're going to see a real mixed up grid. We're going to see a real mixed up race. And here we go. We're going to go into qualifying now. 15 minutes only, and there's quite a lot of cars on the grid. So expect a lot of traffic and expect a few moments.
Yeah, this is going to be a manic 15 minutes. We'll do our very best here at the Sim Grid to bring you the best possible coverage that we can. And we've also got to say at this point in time, a huge thank you to Michael Hamlet on the production team, and to Mike Yao from Simply Race for their awesome work, which we are about to receive. But let's go then. 15 minutes of qualifying here for round 1 of the Sim Grid Porsche Cup Academy Cup. And yeah, I'm really excited for this. This is a venture into the unknown for these guys, and it's a bit strange seeing all those Porsche symbols right now, isn't it?
Yeah, we're normally complaining because there's too many Porsches in the lobby with the GT32R. But now, we've only got Porsches, so everyone's in the same car. No one can have the excuse of, oh, the car I drive isn't good on this track. You're in the same car. It's all about how you drive, how you set up the car. Do you push hard in qualifying? Do you maybe Maybe you're better in race pace, maybe you're better set up for race pace. Do you push hard in the race, or do you come in for that pit stop? There's so many questions here that are all down to the driver tonight, and that really is what this car is about. In real life, it is the sort of the proving ground. I think for new GT drivers, this is where Porsche gets their factory drivers from for the GT3 and GTE cars. So that is really what it is about tonight. It's about proving your skills, about showing what you can do in a car that doesn't help you with traction control. It is all about your control of the car.
Yeah, and it really does put to bed many of those GT3 arguments, doesn't it? About the Mercedes is fast around here and the Porsche's fast around here, and it doesn't matter. You're all in the same car, you're all in the same conditions, you're all on the same track at the same time. Get on with it, and yeah, I think this is going to be an absolute firecracker, and I think we're going to see a mixture of some very, very intense pack racing, but I think we're away to see some pretty hairy, scary moments as well.
It wouldn't be a track in Britain without a traffic jam, would it? We've got a collection of cars here as they go to set up their starting hot laps. Obviously, a big grid here, so getting that gap in the traffic can be really important to your overall qualifying. It's only 15 minutes. You only get 3 or 4 laps to put your best time in, so you want to get that gap early. And we see the field is, I think, fairly well behaved. Obviously, there's enough track here that all these cars can spread out a little bit and get their own areas of the track. For those of you who don't know, we're aiming for a 2-minute flat. That's going to be the fastest time. The lower you can get in the 2-minute flat, the better you're going to be, obviously. But I don't think we'll get much lower than that.
Yeah, I think that's going to be where we are going to be aiming to get to. Again, we might get a little bit nearer that than we think, with folk taking the tow and trying to get the draft around the circuit with each other. But I mean, one thing that you did mention earlier on, Luke, was the tyres, and I don't think we can overstate just how much of a factor they're going to be. You mentioned that in real life the cars only have to go for half an hour, and with the slide factor that these cars have got, I mean, these tyres are going to be getting tortured something horrible.
Yeah, and it is just a car that you slide everywhere, so naturally the car already struggles with tyre wear. You take it to a track like Silverstone, where it's all high-speed corners, where it's all corners that are chewing through those tyres. You put 15 minutes longer on than the normal cars do, and it just turns it into a race where I think strategy can be massive. If you're driving at 2-minute 1 second pace in the race, your tyres will not last the whole race. If you're driving maybe 2-minute 3, 2-minute 4 seconds pace across the whole race, you might manage to make it across 45 minutes. So do you purposefully go that slow and protect your tyres, or do you just push and get for that pit stop?
It is a big dilemma, and I think we'll see how that one pans out through the course of the race coming up in just over 10 minutes' time. A very good evening to everyone that is on the chat on YouTube tonight. You're very welcome to enjoy this race. Just a reminder, this is and always will be for the rest of this championship. It will be the top split that we cover. All of the other splits are racing at the same time, so we wish them the best of luck and hope they have an absolute blast as well. And make no mistake, even if they don't qualify for the top split, look, they're absolutely guaranteed for a very, very close time in racing.
Yeah, we have to remember that this isn't just for bragging rights. You're not just turning up for this race for a championship that means nothing. Every race in top split, there's $100 on the line, and I believe for this race we have a TrackWorks prize for the winners as well. If you go down to the lower splits, we have CDA prizes. We have, I believe, also more TrackWorks prizes through the different splits. So everyone has something to race for in each race. Not to mention that across all 5 races we have a championship, which is about bragging rights and pride. And with these cars, you really can say that you're going to be one of the best drivers in SimGrid if you can win this championship.
Wow, right. I'm trying to get my head around this, Luke. Within 5 minutes of qualifying starting, we've already hit the 2-minute mark, and we've got 15 drivers within 6 minutes within a second of the lead.
Yeah, and what is that, 6/1000th of a second between first and second at the minute? It's going to be a tight one at the top, and really because of that forced conservation of tyres, there will be no spread during the race. We're just going to get a pack the whole race. Well, if we're lucky, I should say. But yeah, you look at that, down to 17th place, there's about a second in it. I don't think I've ever seen a grid that close. Obviously, this is the Cup car. I see a couple of people mentioning in the chat, which car is this? This is the Porsche 911 Cup car. So no traction control, a lot less downforce. Grip is at a premium here, and it is a car really where it's all about footwork and it's all about getting that car sliding properly. So we see flying through the final corner here.
I know, it's the way that it looks, it's so deceiving, Luke, isn't it? You're just like, okay, and okay, come back onto the black stuff now. It just keeps sliding out and sliding out. You think it's going to go off and hit the Armco.
Yeah, just if you sit on an onboard with these cars, it looks like they're out of control the whole lap. But really, it's these drivers just getting it right on the edge of what the car, is capable of. And although I mentioned, sliding. Normally, when you're saying sliding and being fast, you're thinking, a bit of almost like power slides, right? Where you sort of throw the car in and none of the tires grip up, and then bam, the whole car grips, and you get that cornering ability at a slightly higher speed. But this car's the other way around. It's got a lot of understeer in it because of the lack of downforce. Most of the grip is generated by either that rear wing or the tires. So to get the car turning, you have to oversteer it, to get it turning into the corner. So not only using your brake a lot to get that sort of pitch of the car causing the turning, but also you're trying to induce that slide. And then once you're sliding, using the throttle to manage it. So it's a very, very different driving style compared to your standard GT3 or even you go higher and you go up to open wheel cars, which you do not slide under any circumstances. So it's such a challenge, such a unique challenge, and so far it looks like the whole grid's up to it.
See, look, you say power sliding, and the first thing that comes in my head is Initial D and some pounding Eurobeat. But I think there'll be no tofu deliveries tonight because look at that, 20 cars now within a second of your race leader. That is absurd pace that we have got going on just now, and that is only going to get tighter and tighter as the 6.5 minutes roll down here in qualifying for our very first ever round of the SimGrid Academy Cup. And big huge thanks to our special series sponsors, Trackworks, for making this one happen. I was reasonably excited coming into tonight, and just watching this going on is just making me even more. Now, look, just on that note, I'm just noticing Machuska at the bottom of the screen there has got 3 unfortunate letters right beside his name.
Yeah, the 3 letters I don't think any driver wants to see by their name. I can only assume that he was driving during the driver's briefing, which is something that in SimGrid we come down pretty hard on because it usually means you're not actually listening, and that's kind of the point of being in a driver's briefing, is that you're listening. So that is something we normally go for. I would assume if we could get that confirmed by the producers, that'd be great. But I would assume he's been disqualified from qualifying for not being in the briefing. Obviously, when you go back to the race, there we go. There's confirmation. So, Dink returned to the garage for driver's briefing, allowed to start the race, but from the back of the grid. And given the fact that our cash prizes are for first, second, and third, being $70, $20, and $10. Starting from the back of the grid is not exactly optimal.
I'm going to be controversial and maybe say that might not be as bad a thing as we think, given that this is the first one. We've done a couple of one-off races and they were amazing fun, but given everyone's taking this mighty, mighty seriously, I mean, look at that, that's now up to P22 within a second of your pole sitter. I think they could very, very quickly make up some spaces if there was anything bad to happen on the first couple of laps. And remember, it's a 45-minute race. Yeah, granted, it's not the best place to be, but if you're going to be outside the top 10, then you might as well maybe try something different.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's maybe when you're stuck right at the back, do you then go for that weird strategy of trying to drag your tires all the way through the 45 minutes? Because it might be that at the front of the grid, you sort of get forced into pushing, right? If you're trying to lap at 2-minute 4, 2-minute 5 pace just to conserve your tires, and people behind you are trying to lap at 2-minute 1 second pace, they're going to drive into you at some point, and you're going to get involved in a crash. So I think what we're going to see here is that the guys at the front go for that one-stop strategy, and a bunch of the guys in the back just try and survive. Whether or not that actually happens, I think is all down to just how much tire deg is worth here. We're expecting a couple seconds worth of drop off, But the thing that this car really suffers from is what you call the cliff, right? So let's say the first 25 minutes, you'll see probably a second worth of tyre degradation. So they'll start to lose pace, start to lose a bit of grip, and you have to go a bit slower. And then from there, over the next 10 minutes, you lose nearly double that. So that tyre cliff is something that you have to get really scared of if you want to come through this race without pitting.
We can see the pro Renvelten driver just now of Samir Ibrahimi making his way round the number 49 car. That was a car that was, or that was rather a team that had shared with Jardier through the Spa 24 hours. A very, very good finish for them. And third place at the moment just now, just 600ths of a second behind. But look at that, that's a brand new pole sitter then. That is Amir Hassini going up with a 2:05 to take pole position with just 2.5 minutes left to go. That is a lap and a half.
1/10 between the top four. It's about as tight as it gets when you're racing at the top. It's not something you see every day, and I think it'll only get tighter here because in practice, Van der Kokelt was the leader. So I'm expecting some of these guys will come back and set, a couple hundredths of a second here. And normally we're talking about a couple hundredths of a second. It's not that important, but in here it could be multiple positions.
I'm looking at that just now. I mean, I find that absolutely crazy. If we can maybe get the production team to put us down to last place and see what the difference in time is from first to last on the grid. 1.7 seconds for 31 cars. Are you kidding me? That is blink and you'll miss it stuff.
And it always makes me a little bit sad when I look at this and realise just how far off the pace I am, because when we're in the GT3s,
both, brother.
I like to think I'm actually quite good in the GT3s. I do occasionally race as well as commentate, and in the Spa 24 hours, I compare my times, and I wouldn't actually be that bad compared to some of the guys at the front. Maybe half a second to a second off them. And I look at this and I think, I was having a play in this car earlier around Silverstone, and I was genuinely about 4 or 5 seconds off the pace, just because I cannot, that lack of traction control. My lack of experience in cars without traction control makes it so hard to trust the car at all. It's ridiculous to me that these guys are just this fast in this car, and getting it to slide and being confident in it whilst it's doing that is such a challenge. I can't over exaggerate how hard it is to do.
Well, if you want that challenge made a little bit easier for you, remember that this event is sponsored by Coach Dave Academy, and because of that, you can head over to Coach Dave Academy and save 20% on their Porsche Cup setup bundles. You can get the whole lot for only $20. That's qualifying and race setups for every single track in the Assetto Corsa Competizione for the 911 Cup car. They've done all the hard work for you, professionals sitting in for hours and hours and hours of laps and dialing the setups in so you don't have to. And a huge moment for Samir Ibrahimi, goes across the line in the number 49 car. The pro Renvelten takes the pole by 100th of a second. And I don't think this is done yet because Hassini looks to be on a lap. Van der Kokelt is on a lap as well. Oh my goodness!
I think they all are. I think everyone in that top group is still going for a hot lap with as we hit the 0 second mark. So this is the final time that anyone can get their pole times. We see some cars running wide, probably invalidating their laps, but not Van der Kokelt. He's pushing here. Can he get to pole?
Yeah, I don't think he did. I think he went off earlier in the lap, so we're going to keep an eye on the Coach Dave Academy driver of Joe McCauley. Just coming through. And we'll have to wait and see what is going to happen here because there are so many drivers on so many different laps. And Joe McCauley jumps down then, 6th place for him. Chris Hook jumps into 5th place. Van der Kokelt into 4th. But look at that, Kieran Prendergast from, I think he was in the low 10s, up into 3rd place. So that was an awesome, awesome lap there for Prendergast. And here we have Amir Hassini still trying to make his way around.
I believe I think he just crossed the line. Yes, we didn't beat. He didn't beat his time. It's just McCauley, Hook, and Ibrahimi still on laps here. As we always have to remember that they're not on the F1 circuit. We all have to remember that they're using the old grids just before.
I keep thinking about the new one. Yeah,
I always get it wrong as well. So they're just coming into the final corners here, approaching exactly one more corner to go from McCauley, and he was up on his delta earlier on in the lap. Can he put himself on pole? It's going to be close. Here it goes across the line. Where is he going to put himself? He does put himself on pole. What a lap!
What a lap from Joe McCauley for the Coach Dave Academy. Unbelievable stuff there to fire it up at the pole. Alexis Pirelli down in 29th place, 1.8 seconds behind. What can he do? Goes across the line just now. And that's a slight improvement, 2/10, moves him up to 28th place. But can you believe, Luke, 22 drivers within a second?
For a long time, we were saying there was a 10th between 4 or 5 drivers right up at the top, and then right at the end, McCauley just goes and puts it on pole by nearly 2/10. What a final lap by him. Puts himself on the front row in first position. He's going to lead the field as we come to the line. I'm excited to see what he can do from first place.
Wow, that was awesome stuff. Ismail on YouTube is asking what happened to Machuska. Machuska missed the driver's briefing and has then been disqualified from qualification, so he will start at the back of the grid. He was on track during the driver's briefing, and as Luke said earlier on, they clamped down very, very heavily.
And I don't think we could set it up for the race better, right? Having this many cars this close on the grid together, it should be a really close race, and I don't think it's going to be one of those races where someone just pulls ahead and takes off that you tend to see in certain other racing series, especially in real life. But when everyone's in the same car here, when everyone's on, you would assume similar setups, or at least setups designed for their cars and for their driving style, you have to think that this is going to be a really close race.
Yeah, huge feather in the cap there for Joe McCauley there to take pole position from Samir Ibrahimi on the last gasp there, as we see Hassini in third place with Prendergast in fourth, Van de Koekelt in fifth place with Chris Hook in sixth. It's Van der Velde in seventh place with Igor Odgorodnikov in eighth place, De Havilland in ninth place, and Mikel in 10th, Semeraro in 11th with Wedlick in 12th, Carson in 13th, Golt in 14th, and then it's Lona and Gerardis in 15th and 16th place, Wenlock and Royal in 17th and 18th place, with Gans and Baranski 19th and 20th, Spears and Ryan Meenan 21st and 22nd place, and then you have Van Droyten in 23rd, and we'll get some more names up on the list when we possibly can. But a huge grid here, Luke, and you've got to say all hell is going to break loose, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be a little bit messy on the first lap, as we have that big pile of cars because of the way these cars drive. You know, with that lack of traction control, any sort of moment that happens with contact, you can actually save it. You know, it's a bit different with TC cars. I sometimes find that those cars, they sort of get confused, right? When they get turned, the traction control steps in and tries to keep it in the angle it's pointing. But with these cars, with the lack of TC, because you can drift it a lot more, if you can catch those kind of slides. And I think from contact that we will see happen, because it just tends to happen in these kind of races, you know, when everyone's in the same car. So it's going to be important, I think, to be aware of the fact that you'll probably get tapped at some points and be ready to deal with that.
We can see Machuska right at the back there in that pink Porsche. It was the number 25 Audi he was driving at the weekend. It is now the number 26 Porsche Cup car. And we are just a couple of minutes away from starting our very first race. Let's cut to a very quick commercial break, and we'll be back after this.
So talking more about the load cell pedal then, Hunter, just explain to us what the main benefits would be for somebody that's not used any load cells before.
Well, I'm sure you can attest to it that it just feels like a more natural brake feel that you would feel in like a car or whatever you would drive on track. You just get more data inputs from a load cell to your sim of choice by ACC, Assetto, Corsa, iRacing, whatever. And that leads to a smoother and more consistent braking feel.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I'll sort of hold my hands up and say I was quite surprised with the fact that even with a basic load cell, you can sort of feel that the car doesn't lock up as much. It's not so stabby on the brakes.
A very warm welcome back then to round one of the SimGrid Academy Cup in association with Trackworks, Coach Dave Academy and Thrustmaster. I am David Christie, and joining me in the commentary box for tonight, Luke Rogers, and we are in the heart of England tonight, Silverstone. Luke, this is going to be monumental.
And there's not many better tracks in the world really to put Porsche Cup cars around. It's such a it's a track that usually you think suits, high downforce, F1 prototypes around here, because those flowing sections like Maggots, and Chapel really suit those kind of cars. But actually, putting a car that doesn't have much grip, that doesn't have a lot of downforce, is a real challenge. It forces drivers to find ways to get cars turned around corners fast, and that's why you see, those kind of slides that we've sort of become accustomed to through that qualifying session. So. It is a great track for these cars. It's a great track in general, and it should make for a really good race.
100%. I think that's absolutely guaranteed. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle yourselves in, strap in, because the 45-minute dash for the cash is about to begin. The green flag lap is underway. The cars are going to weave about to get some heat into the tyres. It's a $100 cash pot for the top three in this race tonight. $70 to the winner, $20 to P2 and $10 to P3, and you better believe that is getting spent on a few beers after tonight. Joe McCauley in pole position then from Samir Ibrahimi with the second position there, and then it's Hassini in third. That is your 1, 2, 3 as we get ready to start this 45-minute race. Luke, so many big names in this field. Is there anybody that you think we should keep our eye on?
Well, I think you have to keep an eye on pretty much everyone in the top six. We're so used to seeing them, right up at the top. But there's a couple drivers that, perhaps are a bit lower than I might have expected. I think Spears in that number 8 car down in 21st place. He's a driver that we've become accustomed to right at the front of all our grids right now, especially through GT3. So seeing him a little bit further down the grid than usual is going to be a bit of a surprise. And I wonder if maybe qualifying just didn't quite go his way, and he's going to be coming back a bit in the race here. So I expect we're going to see a few drivers not quite in the right position in terms of race pace start to make their way up. But yeah, you have to look at sort of those top 6. I'd argue probably the whole top 10 is pretty much staple names in SimGrid at this point, and all drivers that should make some incredible footage in this race.
I've got to be honest, guys, that's it. This is me retiring tonight. Conrad Nurlos on YouTube chat has just asked, is that Alan McNish commentating? That is about the peak of my commentating career right there, getting confused with the legend that is Alan McNish. It is not. It is David Christie here with Luke Rogers, and from One Scotsman, this is just going to be such an awesome race. The cars start to spread out. I would have expected, Luke, for them to be a little bit closer. Obviously, ACC has its own start system to keep all the cars together, but obviously some of the cars look like they're just trying to keep a little bit of heat in the tyres.
Yeah, a little bit of sad note is that we don't get standing starts. It's another thing that is in ACC, and in real life these cars do have a standing start in the races, so it's going to be a little bit different to the real life Porsche Cup races. We're going to have that start that we're so used to seeing in all our GT3 competition, where you get stacked up side by side, but you don't need to do that until I believe it's the Wellington Straight, where you get forced into the too wide for Brooklands and Luffield. So you just sort of spread out, you warm up your tyres. A lot of these people would be riding their brakes because that brake temperature flows into the carcass of the tyre, which really drives up the overall heat through the tyre. So a lot of that's going to be slamming on the brakes, warming them up. Other people just having those different strategies in terms of how they do it. And then there's also going to be some guys that are trying their hardest not to put any sort of wear into their tyres over this, because I can't stress this enough how important tyre wear is through this race.
It's absolutely massive. How nervous do you think Joe McCauley is right now, starting on pole?
I'm not even in the car, and I'm nervous for him. So I can only imagine that he's shaking his boots a little bit. Obviously, we've got with the way we have the old grid, we have the faster sort of section of the track first. So the cars don't tend to get squeezed up quite as much as they might do if they were going through Village and the Loop. So maybe you're a bit less nervous than you would be if you're on the F1 layout.
Yeah, it's going to be straight into Maggots and Beckett's, and I really have a horrible remembrance of those corners in real life. But never mind, we are ready to go racing then. Joe McCauley is in the lead and awaits to go green. And yeah, I am fairly excited. There we go, the lights go out and we are racing then. Round 1 of the SimGrid Cup Academy is underway, and Joe McCauley gets a clean start straight into second place. But look at Samir Ibrahimi already making a look up the inside. Surely it's not going to be too wide on the first way into Maggots and Beckett's. It is. Samir thinks better of it, pulls out of it, and that means that Hassini can get up there as well. There's cars going everywhere and it's all kicking off. Ibrahimi, I think, is just taking the lead. He has, and Joe McCauley drops down into third place there.
Yeah, I think he had a little bit of a moment through one of the corners. Perhaps the colder tyres, not quite expecting to be as little grip as he had. And Samir moves straight into first place. Whether he can hold on, I'm not sure. But now we get to those slower corners, those tighter corners, they're going to push the grid together. And this is where I think the start of where we might see a couple incidents. Hopefully not. Hopefully we get some clean racing. But yeah, we had that one small incident. But generally, it's been pretty clean so far.
Just one car facing the wrong way at the entrance of Maggots and Beckett's here. It's all been unbelievably clean, and this is the proof of the pudding that we've got some of the best sim racers on show here tonight. This is on board then with Van der Velde looking at Chris Hook, and a huge move up the inside from De Havilland there. Beautiful up the inside. That was fantastic stuff. And down into 8th place goes Van der Velde, still trying to hold on from the cars behind. That's Ogorodnikov in the number 41 car behind him, nibbling away and trying to push him even further down. That's Van de Koekelt up into 4th place there, and you just don't know where to look right now.
Yeah, I think we missed a couple incidents. There's one down into Vale, one into Abbey. There's pushed a few drivers to the back of the grid, but I was sort of expecting a big lap one incident with multiple cars involved. So it's a credit to the field that they've kept it clean with this many cars on a grid, in a car that I think a lot of these guys aren't very experienced in, and they're still keeping it clean, still keeping it feisty, but fair.
Oh, 100%, as we see a car moving off to the left-hand side there. That's obviously a slowdown for that car. Pulls off. That is the number 57 of De Havilland. Now, he was up into 7th place there, and he's all the way back down. That's going to drop him out the top 20 there, so I'm not sure what's happened there, but that's 2 cars side by side. Wenlock and Royale. That looks like a technical failure from De Havilland. I wonder if that's a steering wheel issue for him.
Yeah, he was still moving with his brakes and throttle, so you have to think that he had at least some control still. So I wonder if maybe his wheels disconnected and he's had to pull over to the side there. And it's all I can really think of, and that is a real shame for a driver that looked fast around here, a driver that was, I think, in contention for some of the prizes. And we can't forget as well that this isn't just a one-off race. This is the start of a championship. So even if you don't necessarily make it into the top 3 today, losing out on a 7th or a 6th place, that can be massive for your championship implications. Yeah, that could have huge championship implications, and it's a gearbox transmission issue for him. He can't shift up, so that is why De Havilland is stuck at the side of the road, and that is going to be a retirement from the very first race on lap number 2. That is terrible luck for him. Yeah, so it's very rare that you get a gearbox failure in a sim. Obviously, it would be a hardware issue rather than something in-game, because I don't believe ACC actually simulates that. So I guess we're the pioneers of realism in sim racing here, having gearbox failures. Obviously, a Porsche had a gearbox failure in the Spa 24 Hours this year in real life. So I guess we're carrying that luck over for the Porsche manufacturers. But I think not to worry for Porsche. They've got a fair few contenders still in the race.
I think a Porsche might win it, mate. I think that's potentially on the cards. I don't want to tempt fate here. If it doesn't, I want to know how.
This is where the Renault Clios turn up. The Clio Cup turns up to the race. All the Porsches do there for the Clio wins, but no. Back to the challenge here. We see you just look at those sort of delta splits, right? The intervals on that left-hand side. 3/10, half a second. 3/10, 4/10, 3/10, 2/10. Yeah, it's so close. It's almost like a pack race because all these drivers are so close. They're all in the same equipment. So you can't really get that gap that, you're in a Mercedes, you gain a bunch of time on the straights. Or you're in a Porsche, you gain a bunch of time on the brakes. That just doesn't happen. You're all in the same car. So it's so hard to pull a gap on anyone. And that just makes for these real tight formations of cars flying through corners all together. And now we've got a bit of a Porsche snake forming, slowly but surely, as everyone sort of slots into position. But some people don't want to, as David Michel looks for a move up the inside, coming towards Stowe. Can he make it work?
Oh, slides out and managed to keep control of it. Machuska tries to sneak up the inside as well, and it's all kicking off. That is going to allow Machuska to make the move up the inside, surely. And yep, that's going to be another place then. But that's what I was saying. Hold on a minute. Machuska is up from the back of the grid to 22nd place.
I was saying that maybe being at the back might hurt him, but apparently not. He's making progress. He's rapid at the minute. You have to think that if he'd made it into qualifying, he could have been right at the front of the grid. So there's got to be a bit of a bit of ruining the missed chance there, but it looks like he doesn't really care. And this battle between the 43 and the 22 for 20th place, I should point out. This is for 20th place, and they're banging doors. Shows you the intensity, I think, all through the field here as they were fighting. Finally, the 43 gets through. Not before that slide to Stowe.
Olivier Vogt and Mikel there fighting it out, and yeah, I think that's not the last time we're going to be cutting away to see them cracking little battle. Meanwhile, on board with Amir Hassini, he is trying to catch up with Samir Ibrahimi, who is now 2 seconds off into the distance. Samir is absolutely lighting the touch paper right now with the timing screens. Joe McCauley still in 3rd place, and I've got to be honest, the top 4 have got about a second between them. Even the Prendergast in 5th place, they're all split by a second.
Yeah, we said that the cars did all stay together, and Samir didn't even qualify on pole, and it just looks like he's pushing a little bit harder during the race. We can already see through those times. Right? Matuszka is in the 2-minute 4s, obviously with the 2-minute flats in qualifying. So I wonder if he's whilst making progress through the field, maybe he's trying to look after his tyres whilst doing it. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if some of those guys at the front, we see those front cars starting to move forward a bit. If they're just pushing a little bit harder now, maybe using up the tyres early and getting a gap, and then move into that conservation phase maybe 10-15 minutes into the race.
Yeah, because you can't go maximum attack for the whole 45 minutes, as we see Machuska right on to the back of Olivier Vogt there. And surely with the pace that Rolf Machuska's got, is going to be a wild lunge to the inside. Oh, he manages to force Vogt into outbraking himself on the exit of that corner there. And yeah, Machuska really playing head games right now. Killian Ryan Meeran in Sidemax Waterworks. I believe Sidemax have actually got 6 cars, I think they said in chat, in the race tonight. Just behind, let's have a look. That's Jonas van Druyten in the purple and yellow Porsche. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that must be one of the Keck Sim Racing colours that he's in just now, because that is a very, very iconic livery that's on that car. And that was Semeraro and Taverni that were getting into all sorts of fisticuffs right in front of them. You can see in front of Van Druyten, that's the number 154 and the number 9 Porsche. The great thing is we don't have to worry about which car is which in terms of manufacturers, because that's kind of been solved for us tonight.
Yeah, normally at this point I'm talking about which car is stronger on the straights and where these cars might be able to try and make that pass, but really you're just trying to work out what the driver's doing, right? Because you're not got better brakes, or you might have a bit less downforce, I guess, to give you a better straight line speed, but really you're trying to work out, this driver in front of me, which corner is he bad for? Which corner should I put pressure on him? Because he probably looks like he's going to make a mistake there. And that's a really important skill for these kind of races, and it's a skill that I think you notice more in open wheel racing and more in real life than you do in something like GT3 and ACC, because normally in GT3 you're working out where your car is better, not where you as a driver are better. So it's a different skill. It's a challenging skill, I think, to master, and it really encourages, I think, patience doing that, because you have to sit behind someone for a lap or two to work out where they're good. So it's going to be something I think we see where people are setting up passes, setting up those times where you show your nose a little bit, trying to encourage the other driver to make a mistake, because passing on straight line speed or braking performance alone is so difficult in these cars.
Yeah, it certainly is, and we saw a beautiful view there from the back of Manos Gerardis in the TF Racing Porsche there as we came through Beckett and Chapel, looking back to that mean-looking pack of Shatsky, Baranski, Cairns, Carson, Handler and Mikkel in that one as well. Igor Ogorodnikov though dives it up the inside in towards the loop here. That was a brave move, but not going to stick because Timo van der Velde not going to have any of that whatsoever. The number 41 is left waiting. It's the run then down the Wellington Straight, and he thinks about having a look to the inside. He does have a look to the inside, but just pulls on the brakes into Brooklands, and then it's around into Luffield. Coincidentally, I managed to spin at Luffield under a safety car in real life. Don't know how you do that, but it happened.
This is just you rubbing it in that you get to drive on tracks, and the closest I've done is driving a van on a dirt road in South Africa.
It's driving a P1, mate. It's pretty much the same thing.
No, fair enough. It makes me a little bit sad that people have real life experience like that. But back to the racing we're seeing, there's quite a few drivers in this grid as well that do real life stuff, at least karting. It's really nice to see that these days there's sort of that transition now happening between sim races and real life, because real life motorsports is one of the most exclusive groups, I think, in the world. You know, there are ways you can do it for only a few thousand. I say that like I actually have that kind of money in my bank, but no, there are ways you can do it on a relatively cheap scale. But when you come up to Porsche Cup, to GT3, it costs hundreds of thousands per year just to get an entry into the series. That's not even to buy the car. So it's a very exclusive thing. And sim racing events like this not only let people who don't necessarily have the money to race in real life compete at a high level against drivers that are rapid, but also we're starting to see some kind of transition between real life and sim racing. And although they're not in the series, Butler Powell's an example of that, where they pushed to get their sim races into their real life cars in the VLN.
Yeah, we see it all the time through various different championships on various different platforms. And the other thing that it just struck me the other night when we were speaking about this on the 24 Hours, we see Joe Macaulay there into to second place. Now, hang on, Joe Macaulay is in second place. What has happened to Samir? Where has Samir gone? Because he was in second place and he's now completely he's down in 29th place. What has happened to the number 49 Pro Ren Velton that was all the way up in second place there? That is a huge bombshell. There doesn't look to be too much damage on the car, so that is a very strange issue there, because he's now down at least 12 seconds.
I'm pretty sure he came into the pits, so I think we are seeing that pit strategy that we perhaps weren't necessarily, well, we were considering or theorizing might happen. But it's worth pointing out to the rest of to everyone watching, pitting is not mandatory in this series, but these cars are designed, these tyres are designed for 30 minutes and 30 minutes only. That's what they do in real life, and in real life at the end of those 30-minute stints those tyres are dead. So in a 45-minute race, although you don't have to pit, although it is possible to do the entire stint on one tank of fuel and do the entire stint on one set of tyres, you have to drive in such a way that you don't use up the tyres. And I wouldn't be surprised if drivers like Ibrahimi have just said, well, we're fast enough, why not just pit and just push through the field with those tyres. It's a little bit early to pit with 32 minutes to go, so I don't know if it was coincided with with an issue maybe. I'm not quite sure about that, but it was a very short stop. Actually, being suggested that maybe, based on the length of the pit stop, that it might have been a fuel stop for Ibrahimi. So I wonder if either he's got the fuel calculations wrong and has had to come in, or maybe we're wrong and maybe these cars can't do a full stint, a full 45-minute stint on fuel. I'd be intrigued to see whether it was intentional or not to come in like this, and really intrigued to see what Samir can do through the field from that far back, because although the gaps are tight, although you're only about 25 seconds off the pace, maybe a little bit more now, maybe about 30 seconds, getting past all those cars is going to take so much time. And in 30 minutes, coming from 29th to 1st, it's going to be a real challenge if you if you don't make up
there's
some positions.
Oh, and that's the Luke. That's the number 22 car of Olivier Vogt that was sideways into the corner. Tries to recover. Oh, he is having major problems with the rear tyres on that car. He needs to calm down and get back into the groove. But that was a huge moment there for Olivier Vogt. Was up into 16th place, now all the way down into 22nd, and that was a bit of a scary moment there, Luke.
Yeah, and that's just something that you have to deal with in these cars. No traction control means when you're on the throttle coming out of those slow speed corners, your rear tyres will light up. That is where all that tyre wear comes from in these cars. Well, that and sliding through corners when you're drifting. But you use up a lot of your rear tyres, so it can be a bit of a pit that you fall down. You spin the tyres, use up the tyre wear, and then because your tyres are degraded, you spin them more and more, and eventually you get to this point where you just have no rear grip. And you try to come out of a corner, you just start to spin, and I think that might be what we saw there. But going back to Samir, it's actually a good point. Was it a drive-through? Because obviously track limits are a big thing. In this car, if you have one of those moments where the rear steps out just a tiny bit too much, you have to come in. We're hearing that Samir's was definitely a stop.
Oh, it's a drive-through. It was a drive-through for car
25.
Oh, sorry.
Different car. That's Matushka.
Never mind. No, Matushka's in 26.
Oh, 26. Oh, he's getting numbers are confusing.
Wait, who's 25 then?
I saw them on the. There we go. Karsten. There we go. Karsten down in 25, 30th place. Okay. It looks like he's already served his drive-through. We've also got a 15-second time penalty for the 23 car. I believe that was probably for what we saw not that long ago.
Yeah, that's Hilly and Ryan Meenan that's got the 15-second penalty on there.
Yeah, I'd be intrigued to see what that is for as well. Let me see if I can do some research. I'm sure we have it somewhere. There we go. Avoidable contact between the 8 and the 23 it was actually on lap 1, back on lap 1. I don't think we saw that. But yeah, 15-second time penalty for the 23 car. They're already down in 24th. So it's not exactly been the best race for them, but a 15-second time penalty in this would put them at the back of the grid.
Goodness me, that is wild stuff. Back up with this battle for 7th place then, and what is quite tasty right now is in front, Igor Ogorodnikov and Chris Hook are duking it out left, right and centre, as we saw Ogorodnikov try to hang it round the outside of Stowe Corner, trying to outbrake, and you can see just how much these cars are twitching, under braking as the load goes from left to right. But what a run from Tinko van der Velde. Tries to go through the outside here, through Maggots and Beckett into the inside. What a move from Tinko van der Velde. That is an absolutely sensational move there.
And it makes it stick as well coming through Chapel, so he's got the position. He's moved up into 6th place now, ahead of Igor Ogorodnikov. He's only looking to go forward as well, because it's only a couple of tenths up the road to the next car before there's a bit of clean air here. But Ogorodnikov's trying to come back through Stowe. He comes up the inside. Can he hold on? He slides the car. Can he hold on to it? There's a bit of contact, and he makes it stick, but with a little bit of side contact. I wonder if maybe he's going to be asked to concede the position. The lights are being flashed. I think the return dive bomb's trying to come in, but the 66 can't quite get alongside. I don't think this battle's going to end anytime soon.
It's only going to end, and he does. So Tinko van der Velde gets that position back as Ogorodnikov concedes it back. That was good sportsmanship there. But have a look behind, because like waiting hyenas, Lona and Royale are just behind in 8th and 9th place as well, as we're watching Gianluca Gantz in 11th place, just a couple of seconds behind the red and black Porsche number 90 there of Wenlock. This is Nico Schatke trying to fight Gerardus. Gerardus looking very twitchy in that car right now. He was looking very smooth for the first 15 minutes, but I wonder if he's pushed that car a little bit too hard, and the tyres are now starting to scream for mercy. Nico Schatke looks one way then the other, and is trying to outbrake that number 86. Is he going to be able to do it? Thinks better of it, but tries to outbrake himself down into Brooklands. It's then in towards Luffield, but Gerardus is going to have the inside line. Surely not. Surely Schatke's not going to go right there. So he tries to get the cut back and makes it work. Beautiful move there from Nico Schatke, and that is going to be P12.
Just to get a measure of what that kind of tyre wear is like, Schatke is in the 2-minute 2s. You just said a 2-minute 3, but some of the guys at the front of the field are saying 2-minute 4s. So all through this field, we have this differing strategy where maybe you push in the first 15, 20 minutes. Maybe you push more towards the end of the race. And it's starting to create this sort of ebb and flow where some of the cars at the start push a bit more, and are now falling back into the hands of people like Schatsko, who are looking to progress up towards the top 10 and at least secure championship points if they can't make the top 3. It's just going to make the second half of this race, which we haven't even reached yet. It's going to be great.
Well, Joe McCauley in second place was 0.2 of a second faster than your race leader that last lap round. So that gap is now down to 1.6 seconds. And I wonder if Joe McCauley has just been very, very patient with the tyres. Back with 15th place. And this is Sebastian Handler in the Griphax engineering outfit, just behind the Treble 8 car of Baranski there. And just behind that battle of Schatske and Gerardus as well. So, I mean, there are cars everywhere, there are groups everywhere, there are dogfights everywhere on this track.
Yeah, it's been going on for 20 minutes now. It's going to go on for another 25 easily. We're just going to see this kind of thing happen through the whole race. So, you still look back. I was saying, I think it was about 10 minutes ago now, where I listed off how there was 3 tenths, 4 tenths here. It's not changed. It has not changed at all. We still have this Porsche-based snake just flowing through the currently the final sector of the Silverstone lap, and it's only really at the front where you're starting to see these gaps develop, where sort of between the 99 and 10 you have that 5 seconds and another 2.5 off the road. As soon as you look behind Chris, or at least behind the 66 car, it's just one car after the other, all within a second of each other, all racing for one position. And what happens if you're at the front of this snake and you start fighting with someone? You lose, half a tenth a lap, and normally that's not a massive issue. Normally that doesn't really do anything in terms of bringing other people into the race. If you're doing that for a couple of laps in here, you bring 4, maybe even 5 more cars into the battle.
We're just saying there, incident on lap 1 involving cars 19, 25 and 22, that's given a 15-second penalty for car 19 for avoidable contact. That is Pirelli, who is at the back of the field there. So, yeah, that's very, very unfortunate to that. But that is Luka Vadlich in 25th position, fighting out with Kaminski in 24th place there. And I think they're just coming through the brand new section of Silverstone just now, through the loop and then on to Aintree and then the Wellington straight. Just now as it goes very, very wide, tries to bring the car back onto the track there, and I think that was actually Kaminski just in front. It was the number 7 car going very, very wide down in towards Stowe Corner, and yeah, not quite going to make that work. Kaminski just holds on to the place. They're then going to come down in towards Vale, and yeah, that's absolutely a sigh of relief from Kaminski there. And 23 minutes to go in this race. Can you believe we're already nearly halfway?
No, but I think some of these drivers are forgetting where they are, because it seems like all this sliding is making them think they're in a Rally GT spec Porsche 911 as they try and go off-road there a little bit. And I wonder if that's just the tyre wear coming in. But we were talking about tyre degradation, about lap times falling off. Although Samir is right at the back of the grid because of his pit stop, he was setting 2:01 still, so maybe that tyre wear is not quite as extreme as we expected. Or maybe drivers like Samir are just holding on to these tyres better than we thought they could. And it looks like, I'm sceptical that he's going to be the only guy that pits. I don't know whether it was intentional or not, whether it was an issue with the pit stop. It's certainly possible that he just got his fuel wrong. But it kind of suggests to me that if those guys at the front do need to pit, once that tyre cliff happens, which, by the way, usually happens about 20 minutes in, which we have just passed, once that cliff sort of strikes, I wonder if maybe someone like him who's been a little bit slow at the start of the race and yes, had that pit stop, presumably just for fuel, whether he actually is in a much better position than we think, because some of these guys will have to pit later on.
Well, that tyre wall that was due to come at 20 minutes in hasn't come, because the leaders are still lapping 2/10 off of their fastest laps in the race. So at the moment,
not sure how. That's all I can say. It's madly impressive.
Oh yeah, huge consistency from Hassini in the lead there, 2 seconds ahead of Joe McCauley and Van der Kerkelt in 3rd place there. We're watching Gianluca Gantz for the Gadel Racing outfit, the number 12 machine, just behind Oliver Wenlock in the number 90 machine. And I mean, this has just been an epic fun race so far, and it's now we've talked about patience. I think patience is going to go out the window when you see there's only 20 minutes left to go.
You have to remember as well, there is a money prize for the top 3 in this. $70 for first, $20 for second, $10 for third place. Are we going to see some aggressive driving if maybe Prendergast can catch up to Van der Kukel? How aggressive do you get? Obviously, you can't go NASCAR style and try and intentionally spin someone out, like for those of you who watched NASCAR, happened last night in the real life NASCAR race. So you can't do that in GT racing. You can't do a bump and run like you might do in British touring cars. You have to do it clean, but clean just doesn't mean you can't door bang. Doesn't mean you can't get a little bit rough once you get side by side. So I think we're going to see some aggressive moves later on into this race as people look not only for those prize pools but also for championship points, because remember, it's a 5-race championship. This is only race 1. If you want to get points for that championship and progress towards maybe even winning the whole thing, you need to do well in every race.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what's going to have to be forefront of the drivers' minds right now as they enter this final 20 minutes of the race. If you've just joined us, very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Sim Grid Academy Cup, round 1 at Silverstone of 5 races, powered by Trackworks and in association with Coach Dave Academy and Thrustmaster. I'm David Christie. Alongside me is Luke Rogers, and it's been a thoroughly enjoyable race. But Luke, also, you've got to give all of these drivers credit. We have not seen the chaotic pile-up that we kind of dreaded.
The 25 minutes into a race, in a car designed to only drive for 30 minutes on a set of tyres, and they're still 3 seconds a lap faster than I can do on a fresh set of tyres in quality.
It's still depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, they're so fast in these things. It's ridiculous. I like to think I'm good, and then I see this and I think maybe not. Maybe I'm not, but it's really impressive about what these guys can do in these cars for this long as well. And given the challenges that this car presents as a car with so little grip, you're normally in a GT3, although it's always talked about how they have so much less downforce than an F1 car or a prototype. They still have a ton of downforce. The diffusers on those cars, the splitters as well. They develop a lot of grip for the cars, and this thing just doesn't have that. Yes, it has that rear wing, but I mean, if you actually look at the thing, it's very flat, and there's just not really any sort of elements on the car that generate a lot of grip for you. So you've got not a lot of grip. You've got no traction control to help you. The ABS is inconsistent, I think is the best way to put it. You've got tyres that are degrading, and you've got a fair bit of horsepower under your foot. It's such a challenging car to drive, and it's been such a clean race.
It certainly has, and we were on board there while you were speaking there, Luke, with Van der Velde in 6th place, really, really struggling to wrestle this car round the track. He did catch up to the back of Chris Hook in 5th place there, but now Igor Ogorodnikov is trying so hard to keep onto the back of him. Meanwhile, your race leader, that gap has come down by 0.4 of a second. It came down even more, just ever so slightly, and then went back up again. Hassini getting caught very slightly by Joe McCauley. You can see that gap now is a little bit closer than it has been before. 1.6 was the gap last time round. We'll see as they come across the line next time how far that is. But Joe, I think, is starting to settle into that rhythm and maybe put Hassini in a little bit of pressure.
And I'd love to get him on board in that battle right now, maybe with Ogorodnikov, just because what we saw through Magnussen and Beckett, I think he was pointing the other way with the steering wheel more than he was actually turning into the corners. These are cars that you drive with your feet, as much as with the steering wheel. You're using that brake to get the car turned in, and then once the car's turning, you're using the throttle to get it sliding just enough to get it around the corner. So sometimes you're actually using the steering wheel to manage a drift more so than you are actually turning in. And that's what we saw with Ogorodnikov when he was coming through Chapel. And I wonder if right now, with that tyre degradation, whether it's getting even worse.
Owen, Wenlock is just having a look here. Now, we're getting a word from race control that we're getting quite a few incidents starting to happen now. So, Luke, that point about the tyres may be coming into play now as the traction is kind of going off that cliff, as you were saying.
Yeah, and I think that cliff is looming. We're sliding down the hill towards it right now, and we're about to go over this. We see a car pointed the wrong way around, coming through. I think that was in the loop, right? Yeah, we saw one car admittedly towards the back of the grid, but facing the wrong way, which going the other way around the track when you've got a grid of 30-odd cars actually racing the normal race, it's probably not very smart to do. So you want to get that thing righted as quick as possible, get back on track. I think it was the 13 car that we saw around, and I imagine that's not going to be the only car having issues right now. We see now with the 22 car, he's about a second off his optimal pace last time round. I think that's probably the story through most of the field. We see, the battle for P5 it's getting tight. This is actually a move for position right now, as the 66 goes past, I believe, on the 99 car. What a move there through Stowe.
It's actually Chris Hook still holds on to that 5th position though on the inside of Stowe, and it's down in towards Vale, then in towards Club Corner. Oh, this is huge. What a move from Van der Velde to take that 5th position like candy from a baby, and Chris Hook is going to be very, very unhappy running wide, and that leaves him exposed to Igor Ogorodnikov as well. Can Van der Velde just run away with it? But here comes Ogorodnikov. Great run through that set of corners here, and we are going to go in towards the village and then in towards the loop there. Ogorodnikov gets the door shut in his face by Van der Velde, and it's all going to be on the run down to the Wellington Straight. Surely there was contact there, but there wasn't. They just managed to avoid each other, and here we go. It's the run down towards Luffield. This is just an awesome race, and they're going to hit Brooklands and then Luffield, of course. But that has compromised Ogorodnikov by about a second. But look at the leader now. That gap, I was getting all excited there because the gap was down to 1.1, but it's went straight back up to 1.9. So we'll calm down on that one. But Van der Velde then in 5th place. This is Gianluca Gantz all over the back of Owen Wenlock. And look, it must be so difficult for our producers to know where to look right now, because almost every battle right now on track is about 0.2 to 0.5 seconds.
Sometimes you think you need 5 or 6 screens to probably watch what's going on. To be honest, we could probably do with an onboard on every car just to get the optimal viewing of this, just because there are battles everywhere. Yeah, look down, 19th and 20th, there's 3 tenths between them. 17th, 18th, 4 tenths, it's all through the field, and it's just constant. And we saw there as well, with the 66 to the 99 fighting, even though Ogorodnikov at the start of the lap was about a second behind them, as soon as you get side by side in these cars, not being able to get that slide on like you would normally do, to not be able to commit quite as much to each corner because you have that car sat right next to you, it slows you down so much, and it brings those other cars into the fight. So all the time we're seeing this where 2 cars fight and another 2, maybe even 3 cars come join in.
Yeah, I think that's how it's going to pan out over the final 13 minutes, and it's strange to believe that it's only what we've got left. 13 minutes out of 45 as we see Chris Hook flying through that set of corners there, absolutely on it, trying to catch up to Van der Velde and take that place back from Tinko. I don't think he's going to have the pace though. He's half a second behind already, and just getting a little bit of a gap between him and Igor Ogorodnikov there. That's now up to 8 tenths of a second, as that's a brilliant little battle for 5th, 6th and 7th place. One man who's got my attention is Goltz down in 14th place, the number 24 car. He, from the looks on the timing screen, I think is about the 3rd fastest car out there on track. He did a 2:02.0 that last lap round, and that was, as I say, 3rd fastest of anyone on the track, so he could be making some moves towards the end of the race here. But Joe McCauley now, despite getting that gap down to about a second and a half to the leader, is now over 2 seconds behind Hassini. Back on board then with Gianluca Gantz behind Owen Wenlock. He's got a bit of a run here, and this is looking very, very nice indeed. They're going to be coming up through towards Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel just now. Wonderful run from Gianluca, but it's fine having that run, but he needs to be able to exploit it. It's all about the run out of Chapel here, and I don't think he's got it. He's going to try and tuck into the slipstream, and it's all going to be about the run down the Hanger Straight to Stowe Corner.
And once again, you just see the cars are just so well matched right now that maybe Gantz has a little bit more pace through the corners, but he just can't quite get that traction out of the corners and get that run on the straights, which you need in this car to make overtakes work. So he needs to just keep that pressure up on the 90, and eventually that 90 car will brake a couple meters too late or a couple meters too early, or maybe get a bit too much slide in one of the corners, and that's when you strike, that's when you make the pass happen. It's all about patience in these cars, all about setting up your passes and making it work.
Now, hang on, Samir Ibrahimi is back up to 20th position after going to do that pit stop. So that is one heck of a recovery drive that he is on just now. Another car off the Side Max Motorworks team is Sam Cairns in a ding-dong battle with Semiraro and Killian Ryan Meenan as well. Who is that on the outside? I think that is the number 93 that is Cairns, and Ryan Meenan actually duking it out for that position then.
Yeah, Semiraro gave him a little bit of a lub flap through the corner there. A bit of door banging, but as they say, rubbing is racing, so no harm done. Which makes it a lot more fun, I think, to watch. And in these cars, you can do that. There's no element on the side of the cars that the slightest bit of damage causes you multiple seconds of lap time loss because of downforce. These are cars that I think to some extent you can treat these a bit like touring cars, right? And you see in BTCC, I think is a great example where they really can rub doors and stuff. And in the Porsche Cup car, you can do the same because you're not reliant on the body of the car as much in generating downforce, so you can afford to do a little bit of a hit check, but you have to be, I think, very careful that you don't do it a bit too forcefully.
I don't know about that though, Luke, because Sam Cairns has been punished with a 10-second penalty after that, and I'm presuming that's for track limits because it was 5 seconds and it went up to 10 seconds. So that is a bad day at the office for Sam then, and that is going to drop him way down the order. In fact, probably to say P30. So 10-second penalty for car number 93. So that was for avoidable contact then. So that must have been an earlier incident that's happened for Sam Cairns, and he's been punished for it then. It's not track limits, it's avoidable contact.
Yeah, we see it say lap 7, so that was a little while ago now. Obviously the lap's about 2 minutes long, so by the logic of maths, I would say it's about 15 minutes into the race. So just under 20 minutes ago. That happened, roughly speaking. So, Odorodnikov makes a mistake. Our current 6th place car, you just see that has no grip whatsoever. He's trying to get that thing going, and I think he had a little bit of assistance getting off the track here. I believe he maintains position, so I think it was the 98 that hit him in the rear, pushed him off a little bit, but almost a big moment there for 6th place.
I think it was the 99, the Chris Hook, that's down in 8th place that did that, but we'll find out, and race control will be very intently looking at that one because that cost both drivers a bit of time. Look at this though, Jean-Luc Gantz now under attack from Nico Schatke while trying to take that place from Owen Wenlock. Around the outside, goes a little bit wide, and that leaves the door open for Nico Schatke. Can he get the run as they come across the line? 8 minutes left to go in this race, and it's still Hosseini from Joe McCauley and then Van der Kokelt. That is your top 3 right now, and I don't think anything is going to change right now. Jean-Luc Gantz really has his mirrors full right now of Nico Schatke. It's going to be a run in towards Maggots and Beckett's, but it's not going to happen right now. It might happen on the exit towards Chapel. We'll have to wait and see.
And you can just see now, with that lack of grip that these cars have, if you get out in the marbles, if you get off the racing line, as we see right there with the car going wide, it is so hard to... the Schatke going off there, the 996 car, but it's so hard to make moves work because you have to come out of the grip. You have to come out of the rubber that's down on track to make it work. And when you do that with tyres that don't really want to grip to the track, you just get all over the place and you start sliding. And it can be really tough to do. And that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing these guys trying to make moves work on the brakes. And when you're doing that, coming into a corner a little bit hotter than usual, with no rear traction, the car's just going to slide all over the place.
Matushka, despite starting at the back of the grid, is up to P15. He is on track for potentially getting a top 10 finish right now. We'll see how that one pans out. Meanwhile, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th are all separated by just 2 seconds. They are involved in one heck of a scrap going on just now, as are Nico Schatke, Baranski and Golt, who we're on board with just now. And this has just been everything I expected from this race and so much more.
And just all these cars now starting to go off the track, starting to get sliding. It's such a scary moment, I think, for anyone on this track. With 6 minutes to go, you're starting to reach that cliff of tyre degradation. It's about surviving now. It's about holding on to what you have. And I think especially as you're those leaders that have developed those gaps, we see 6 seconds for Olga Rodnikov and so on and so forth. Those kind of guys are very happy with where they are right now because they don't need to push anymore. They can take their time, they can be nice on the tires, and just sort of drag their car home with whatever's left on those tires. But you cannot do that if you're 7th, if you're 8th, if you're one of these guys battling. You have to keep pushing right to the end. And when you're doing that on these tires, that's when you can ruin your race.
Well, you're absolutely spot on about the tyre degradation now, because we are now 0.8 of a second away from our fastest lap. So the loss is real, and it's just starting to get compounded even heavier as the laps go in. So if you are on your own, potentially like the leading 4 cars, and you're just doing your own thing, tyre drop-off might not be as much of an issue as some of the guys further down who are deeply entrenched in this warfare right now. The tyres will be blistered and they will be absolutely big. And for Mercedes, we see Owen Wenlock going a little bit wide, trying to catch up to the back of Gantz there, but it's not going to happen. So Gantz has got past Wenlock, and Schatzke is going to be the next one trying to take that place from Wenlock. But Owen Wenlock thankfully has got about 2 seconds of an advantage over Nico Schatzke for that 11th place there. So it's all starting to calm down a little bit now in terms of positions, as we see Samir Ibriani on that recovery drive, nobody else pitting. So I think
his best time.
Confirm that that is what it was. It must have been a fuel issue.
He said a 2-minute flat 0.6 during this race. Everyone else is in the 2-minute 2 seconds. I would only assume that he must have been on his quali setup and put quali fuel in at the start of the race, because he was checking out from the rest of the grid and had to pit. Given the fact he's done 2-minute flat 0.6, I think you have to guess that he probably forgot to switch his setup before the start of the race. Started on 4 laps worth of fuel, which is generally what you do in qualifying, and that's why he had to get that pit stop in. But he is flying, and I think it's a real sad that Matuszka, and because he got disqualified because he was a bit of an idiot in practice, and Abrami being a bit of an idiot after qualifying and forgetting to switch his setup. Both of those guys sort of brought themselves out of contention for the win. I think they would have both been drivers that would have been right up there, and we would have had an even better battle for the win. So it's a bit of a shame that we've got less guys up at the front, but it's still been a great race. And watching those two fight through the field because of it has been a real pleasure.
Yeah, it certainly has. 3.5 minutes left to go, and we're watching Dominic Goltz in the Revolution Sim Racing Blue 24 machine, just behind Baranski in the Treble 8. They are kind of on their own right now, because Nico Schatzke is about 1.5 seconds up the road from them. And then you've still got that battle between Igor Ogorodnikov in 6th place. You've got Royale in 7th, and then Chris Hook in 8th place there. But look at that, Dominic Goltz is right onto the back of Baranski. Moves one way, switches the other, tries to be late on the brakes into Vale Corner there. It's not going to happen. And then it's going to be the run through club is going to be where it all matters. And I think Goltz is just going to have to reevaluate that situation, back off a little bit, and think again as they come through in towards Abbey.
And when you have that little bit of a gap behind you, you can experiment a little bit. You can try in corners to maybe take a slightly different line and just see if you can get a better exit out of them. Because if you lose a couple of tenths here or there, you don't suddenly have another car behind you that you have to worry about. And you see that now, where he's trying these different lines through the corners to try and get a better run, because he knows he's faster than Baranski, and he knows he can catch that back up if he just does lose a couple of tenths. But when you have Matuszka right behind you now, starting to close up, you can't do that anymore. Now, where there's only 0.5 seconds behind him to the other car, now he has to either make that move stick or defend. And if he's defending, then he can't really go forward. So not being able to get this move done for Goltz maybe means he's going to move back a spot rather than forward as we come, I believe, to the last lap of the race here. Although I think it will be tight. I think there's going to be a couple of seconds in it.
The one man that has looked after his tyres better than most is Tinko van der Velde in 5th place there. He's probably the least amount affected by the tyre drop-off right now. His last lap there, 202.1. Everyone else is doing 202.6s, 202.7s. So he's chasing down Prendergast for that 4th place. I don't think he's going to do it though with this 125 though. Dominic Goltz is still just behind Baranski there, and that is allowing Machuska to catch right back up to the tail of that little battle there. Goats is on the run down in towards Stowe Corner, and yeah, it's a case of picking your moment, isn't it?
Yeah, right now there's not really been a moment to pick for Goltz, is it? It just looks like Baranski's doing enough in the right corners to stop Goltz from being able to get along on either his inside or outside and try and make the move work. And that is a big issue for Goltz as Matuska is hanging on. He's not quite closing the gap though, so maybe he can be a bit more patient, Goltz, than we think. But you think with 2 tenths to go, surely he's going to be able to get the move done soon. And I expect approaching Village now, with that hard braking zone, I think that has to be where this move is made.
Yeah, you would think so. Meanwhile, here is Amir Hassini. We have barely seen him all through the race because he's had such a quiet, commanding lead over Joe McCauley in second place there. He's going to go across the line and put another lap in. So this is going to be, I believe, the final lap of the race. So a stunning performance there, 2:02.2. So again, Hassini has just had fantastic pace right now throughout this race as we are on board with Tinko van der Velde. And as predicted then, he's coming up to the back of Prendergast, that number 10 car. This is the battle for 4th place then. And this could be a huge move if Tinko van der Velde can pull this off.
And we didn't see it, but something's happened between Goltz and Baranski, because not only has Baranski lost a position to Goltz, but he's also gone behind Matuska. So I wonder if maybe the 24 car has encouraged the 888 into making a mistake, or whether there's a bit of contact involved, I'm not sure. But the 888 car, which was in 13th a couple moments ago, is now behind both these cars. So yeah, you see he did a 204.8 last time round, so he must have made a mistake or had a bit of contact somewhere. And it's moved him back 2 positions on the final lap of the race.
And that is huge, huge news. But here we go then, Van der Velde, Tinker van der Velde in the 66 car. They're down in towards Vale Corner, and it's going to be the final run through towards Club Corner. Huge, huge going through.
And obviously a duo that in the SimGrid world, in the SimGrid universe, has a bit of history, we should say, in terms of incidents. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tinko gets a bit aggressive in trying to make a move done. If he can get alongside, I think he's going to go for it here. But it looks like for now, Prendergast is holding on. But we've got one more sector of the track to go, one more real big braking zone, and an area with Brooklands and Lovefield that you can go too wide in. So I wonder if Tinko can get the run down here. Maybe he can get alongside in Brooklands and make a move happen in the final corners of the final lap.
Here is your race leader then, ladies and gentlemen, Amir Hassani into the final corner of the final lap. Round 1 of the SimGrid Academy Cup goes to Amir Hassani. A beautiful, beautiful win there, dominating over Joe McCauley in second place. It's going to be Van der Koekeld in third place there. Great third place in a podium for Niels. And then in fourth place then, 3.3 seconds behind that, just holding on, is going to be Prendergast ahead of Tinko van der Velde. A brilliant, brilliant finish there. Ogorodnikov is going to come across the line in 6th place. It's going to be 7th place for Royale. 8th place is going to be Chris Hook. Lona in 9th place. And then it's going to be Gantz just ahead of Owen Wenlock. And Nico Schatzke, so unlucky not to get past Owen Wenlock there. Goltz is up into 13th across the line. Machuska, how he finished in 14th place from the back of the grid. That is sensational stuff. Baranski in 15th, Mikhail in 16th. Gerardis, despite the twitchiness, finishes in 17th. Samir Ibrahimi, it could have been so different for him. 18th for him. Oliver Voigt in 19th there. It's Handler in 20th. Weidlich in 21st. Killian Ryan Mainin in 22nd with that 15-second penalty. Semeraro in 23rd. Kaminski in 24th. Spears in 25th. Sam Cairns in 26th. It's Tavernari in 27th. Eunice van Druyten in 28th place. Shermatinsky in 29th. And at the back of the grid, Pirelli finishes us off. My goodness me.
And luckily, I think for a lot of the guys at the front of the grid, all those penalties are all out of the back. So all those drivers at the front of the grid know they finished where they are. So there we are, the final finish of the race here. We have 2 guys that didn't finish racing, Karsten and De Havilland. Obviously with Havilander's, I think his pedals, his gears will stop working. on his Fanatec wheels. So, you know, if it's a Fanatec wheel not working, Thrustmaster? Question mark.
Well, you know, we're not saying that it wouldn't have happened, but it wouldn't have happened, you know. But we've got to say a huge thank you to our event sponsor, to Trackworks, to Coach Dave Academy, and to Thrustmaster for helping us put that one on. Wow, well, that was just awesome stuff, Luke. And 45 minutes sprint race, that had everything, didn't it?
I was feeling more tired than I was from Spa when we did the 24-hour race at the weekend. There was so much going on. There was a lot of adrenaline is the best way to put it. There was so much action on the track all through the field. You know, a couple seconds gap at most between cars. So it's such a great race. And I think credit to every driver on the grid with how clean the race was. We didn't have any incidents. We had no big crash that we were a little bit scared of, given the way these cars drive. All these guys keeping it nice and well behaved and producing what was a really fun race to watch.
Yeah, it certainly was. So a huge win there for Hassani. He made it look very, very easy indeed. I mean, Joe McCauley had the pace originally to keep up with him, but just couldn't hold that Porsche.
Yeah, and I just wondering exactly what Samir would have been able to do in that battle. Would he have been able to hold on with Hosseini and have that battle for the win if he had remembered to put the right setup on before the start of the race? And if Batushka had paid attention to the rules during practice and come into the pits when the driver's briefing on, I think with the pace we saw there, he could have also been a contender. So I wonder if, you know, obviously there's 4 more races through the rest of the month. Obviously every Monday in November we have an Academy Cup race. I wonder if this is going to be a sign of things to come with Hosseini at the front, or whether some of those drivers that had those issues, or some of those drivers not that far back from him, are going to challenge on those other tracks. Because obviously we go to Zandvoort next time round, which is a little bit different. Zandvoort is a slower track. There are high-speed corners, but there's a lot more braking. There's a lot more slow-speed corners. So it presents a real different challenge to Silverstone. Whether the grid's going to be the same, I'm not sure, but it's going to be another great race. But I think to start now, we're going to have some interviews with some of the drivers from the grid.
We certainly are, and just waiting to get interviewed. We'll bring him in just now. Is Niels van der Kekelt. Yeah, that was awesome stuff. So if we can get Niels in, we've got Wolf Machuska in as well. But Niels, welcome aboard, buddy. That was a fantastic race, Niels van der Kekelt. Talk us through that one, because I mean, you had a really good first outing.
Good evening, gentlemen. Yeah. I was a bit annoyed with my quali because I was like 3/10 up, but I invalidated it in the last corner. So unfortunately, it was P5. But I just had a very good start, and you know, I managed to keep it safe in the beginning, and just have decent enough pace to pull away from Prendergast behind me. And I think after that, we were just pretty much doing equal pace. So it was all about just surviving, because oh boy. It got sketchy at times.
That was one thing that Luke and I were talking about through the race. How bad were the tyres towards the end?
They were awful. Like I've never driven with tyres worse than this. It was. Yeah, go on.
Do you think in some of the other tracks, it might also be a strategy to actually come into the pit stops? You know, maybe if we have a shorter pit lane on some of the other tracks, or do you think it's just going to be a case of trying to survive for the whole 45 minutes?
Yeah, I don't think it's viable to do a tire change, because it will be 30 seconds, and you're not going to gain 30 seconds on pace with fresh tires. Like, I only dropped about a second off the pace I was doing in the first 10 minutes. So I don't think it's going to be viable to do a stop strat, unless it's mandatory, of course. But I don't think that will be in place.
Now, the great thing is that obviously this is just round 1 of the championship, Niels, and so it's a good haul of points for the remaining 4 rounds.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very happy. And I've got my hometown race, my literal hometown race on Zandvoort coming up as well, so I'm really looking forward to that. But I reckon that's going to be a pain as well with the tires.
Is that a track you expect you should be fast on?
Hopefully.
A track you probably have a lot of experience with.
Right? Yeah, hopefully. But I've never tried the Cup car around Zandvoort, so I'll definitely need to get some practice in. And I think I'll need to work on my setup a little more because my tires were gone after 10 minutes.
Well, Niels, best of luck for the remaining races in the championship. You certainly gave us a lot to watch tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. That was Niels van der Kukelp there. And next up then is a man. Right, we'll get this introduction out of the way, Wilf, because you need a slap across the back of the head, don't you? That was some self-inflicted pain right there.
Well, yes, I'm honestly just come here to apologize for my incident. Well, I have to blame the 24 still. I didn't really get like the sleep or any practice, so I think the driver briefing for the 24 was at 45, so my brain was just like, I have 5 more minutes. And my bad for this one. Not gonna happen again.
It must be mega frustrating for yourself because we watched you with incredible pace coming from the back of the grid, and I think at the end, what was it, P14 you got out of that?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know about my pace because I didn't really practice that much, just like half an hour earlier this day, and I didn't really drive on my final race setup either. I was planning on calculating fuel and quali, and since that didn't work out, I didn't really know how much fuel to put in. So starting with 20 liters more from the back, it was crazy on the first couple of laps, but an amazing race for myself. Just door-to-door racing. Very little contact. I got lucky a couple of times. So amazing race still.
Do you think with the rest of the series, with the next 4 races, that you'll be one of the drivers competing right at the front?
Well, for the next race, I know for sure that I'm not going to be able to practice a lot again. Hopefully that will change for the last couple of rounds. But I see myself for sure in the top 10 in quali, and if everything goes well in the race, anything can happen. But the pace that the guys have in front, especially the top 5, it's so high that I don't really have a plan of competing for the podium. But I'm gonna try my best, stay clean, and hopefully that gives me some results.
Excellent. Well, Wolf, we wish you the best of luck. We'll see you next week for Zandvoort, and have a fantastic night and enjoy catching up on your sleep.
Thank you, I will. See ya.
Excellent stuff there. Wolf Machuska there. And finally, the last driver that I can see in the waiting lobby is Zachary Royal, finishing 7th place. Zachary, you qualified in the for the actual race itself in the 20s. You did much better in the actual qualifying, but that you must be delighted with that result.
Yeah, it's pretty good in the end. I think the others battling ahead helped me a lot because I didn't really have the pace to catch like Ogron, Coven, all those guys. But they were having such a scrap ahead, I just took a second a lap out of them, and then I was there ready to move.
It must have been difficult for you to believe your luck because, as you said, everybody else around you was fighting and banging doors and getting into fisticuffs, and you were just picking your way quite casually through them.
Yeah, I was surprised at how well I got past them, really. I was expecting them to be right up behind me trying to pass me, but the pace was good enough to keep them behind, so it was just picking them off one by one, and ended up quite high up the order.
So, I mean, obviously that's Silverstone round 1 out of 5 out of the way. Looking forward to Zandvoort. Is that a track that you particularly like?
I haven't really raced it too much, but I'll give it a good go. Hopefully I can be a bit quicker there, especially in qualifying. That really hurt me today. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the next round.
How did you find the tyres towards the end?
Oh, no, fine. Maybe a little understeery. I went a bit safe on the setup just to make sure I could hold my tyres, get good traction, and I think it worked quite well.
With setups, do you feel like with these cars that there is just that optimal setup that everyone tries to work towards, or do you think it's more of a car that you can design to your own abilities?
You can very much customize this car. For example, on the quali server, a lot of people were running like max wing, high rake. They were doing like 240 something on the 260 something on the straights, whereas I was able to match their pace with like zero wing, negative rake. And I was like, yeah, you're able to match that. I think you can really sort of build this car to how you want to drive it. You may lose a tenth here, a tenth there, but especially for like long races, you're going to want it sort of built around how you want it.
Excellent stuff. Well, we wish you all the very best for the rest of the season, Zachary. A fantastic result, P7 tonight, and go and celebrate a fantastic top 10 for yourself, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for that, and looking forward to next time.
Excellent, good stuff, Zachary Royal there. Ladies and gentlemen, then that was short and sweet. It feels like that just went in a blink of an eye, Luke, compared to the 24-hour race.
Yeah, but it almost felt longer to me than one of our 3-hour stints on Spa, because there was so much going on. With Spa, sometimes there were periods of the race where everyone was settled into their position and racing their own race, and with this, you just didn't have that. It was 45 minutes of constant action all throughout the field, and that's just really the joy when you have these, spec sprint races. There's no pit stops where you come in and you lose 5 seconds because you screw it up. There's no fuel conservation because you can all make it to the end quite easily in 45 minutes. There is tire conservation, but really in this, it kind of felt like the tires didn't quite degrade as much as everyone was fearing. And yes, there was degradation, but just by pushing, you could sort of manage it and push your way through the lack of pace with those tires, just by sliding the car even more than you might do with good tires. So it was such a great race, such a great 45 minutes, and I think set a precedent for what should be a really good championship.
And just finally on tonight, Hassini, Macaulay and Van der Kokelt were our top three, and they all stayed incident-free. Do you think that's the key thing, is getting yourself into some sort of clear air and leaving the pack behind?
I don't think you necessarily have to leave the pack behind. If you do want to do some tire management, or maybe a bit of fuel management if you're feeling spicy, it's something you can do. But what you have to make sure is that you don't get any time penalties, because we saw a 10-15 second time penalty in this with how close the field was. That could be 5, that could be 10 positions. It's just something you have to avoid. And if you want to be one of those guys up in the top 3, or if you want to be one of the guys fighting for the overall championship throughout the Academy Cup, you just cannot afford any penalty in any of the races.
Well, that brings us very nicely into the point. If you do want to be up at the front of the field and at the top of your game, then take advantage of our special partnership offer with Coach Dave Academy. You can save 20% on Porsche Cup setup bundles from CDA. Simply head to thesimgrid.com, follow the link we've got there, and you can get all of the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup setups for only $20. That's race and qualifying setups for every single track in Assetto Corsa Competizione. And if you do want to get that extra advantage, then why not check out our event partner trackworks.ca for their amazing range of performance enhancing custom engineered brake mods for the Thrustmaster products. So a big thank you to them, a big thank you to CDA, to Coach Dave Academy, to Trackworks, to Thrustmaster as well. Luke, that is us for tonight. Zandvoort is going to be just more of the same, isn't it?
Zandvoort is a track which is tight. It's hard to race on. It's hard to overtake on. You compare that to Silverstone, which is a track well known for being easy to overtake on, well known for a track that's being quite wide and quite open. It's a really different challenge, and it's a track where one moment of mistake is going to put you in a gravel trap or put you in a wall. So the whole race, I think the whole complexion of the race changes next week, where at Silverstone, you can afford to have those little moments. You can afford to really push 100%, get the cars sliding. And, if every now and then you have that step out, that means you have to, cut a corner or go a bit wide here or there, you can do that. At Zandvoort, you can't. So it's going to be a track that punishes every mistake. And I think it's going to be just as good, if not better.
Well, Luke, thank you very much for joining us tonight. That has been Luke Rogers. I've been David Christie. Thank you to everyone at home watching us on the SimGrid YouTube channel. Remember to give the video a like and to hit that subscribe button to be notified when we next go live. We will see you again next week for round 2 at Zandvoort. Same time, same channel. From everyone here at the SimGrid, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
So talking more about the load cell pedal then, Hunter, just explain to us what the main benefits would be for somebody that's not used any load cells before.
Well, I'm sure you can attest to it that it just feels like a more natural brake feel that you would feel in like a car or whatever you would drive on track. You just get more data inputs from a load cell to your sim of choice by ACC, Assetto, Corsa, iRacing, whatever. And that leads to a smoother and more consistent braking feel.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I'll sort of hold my hands up and say I was quite surprised with the fact that even with a basic load cell, you can sort of feel that the car doesn't lock up as much.